Right, good. Oh, goodness me, that's a bit ringy this morning. Good morning to members, officers and any members of the public who are attending this meeting of South Cambridgeshire District Council Cabinet. My name is Bridget Smith and I'm the leader of the council. Whether you're present in the chamber or attending virtually, can you make sure that you don't switch your microphone on unless you're invited to speak? And those who are participating virtually, if you could use headsets or microphones, I'm sure we can hear you actually. The normal procedure at Cabinet is we take votes by affirmation, and we will continue with that. When we move to a vote on any item, I'll ask if members agree with the proposal, but only those members present in the chamber will be able to move and second motions and vote. Members who are present virtually may speak in any debate. So I think we've got Councillor Brian Milnes attending virtually. Have we any other cabinet members attending virtually? No, just Councillor Milnes. Good morning, Councillor Milnes. Right. So members of the cabinet. Right. So we've got some other members attending. That's fine. Members of Cabinet will be invited to speak before non-Cabinet members. If you are tuning in remotely and you'd like to speak, please could you indicate in the chat that you'd like to speak, and then I will take you in the order in which you appear in the chat. Okay. Righty-ho. So I'd like to begin today by welcoming Councillor Judith Rippeth as Deputy Leader of the Council. So welcome, Judith, and congratulations on your new role.
Good morning. Is that working?
Yeah. Yep, that's lovely.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, Councillor Judith Rippeth. I am the new Deputy Leader of the Council and also represent Milton and Waterbeach Ward. And I'm responsible in the new role for transformation, performance and shared services.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And I think we're going to be hearing from you later. Righty-ho. So the meeting is quorate. And we've already confirmed that Councillor Brian Milnes is present. Have we got any apologies, please?
Thank you, Leader. I can confirm we've received apologies from Councillor John Williams, the lead Cabinet Member for Resources.
Thank you. That is noted. Fine. Okay. So do we have any? Going on to item 3. Do we have any declarations of interest, please, in relation to any item of business on this agenda? No? Okay. And moving on to the minutes of the previous meeting, members are asked to approve the minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, the 22nd of March. Gosh, that seems a long time ago. I move the approval of those minutes as a correct record. And is that seconded? Councillor Bill Handley is seconding that. Do members agree to approve the minutes? Oh, apologies. Councillor Ellington, you wanted to comment on them. My apologies for not...
Sorry, on page 6, just for accuracy, under 1.4, I think third paragraph, about automatic access rights, not success rights.
Thank you for your diligence in picking that up. Jonathan, have you noted that?
I have, yes.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Enter. Any other points relating to the minutes? Thank you very much indeed. Do members agree to approve the minutes? Anyone wish to vote against the proposal? And anyone wish to abstain? Okay, Cabinet therefore agrees the approval of the minutes as a correct record by affirmation. Okay, now public questions. Please, Rory.
Thank you, Chair. So through you, members will see that there was a public speaker who had registered to make a statement. Yesterday, the public speaker asked for that to be substituted into a question, and on liaising with yourself as chair, they were advised that they were not able to ask the question given that the matter was currently the subject of legal proceedings. I advised the questioner, and on that basis he is no longer speaking today.
Thank you very much indeed. Is there any expectation that we provide his original statement? Is there any expectation that we provide a response to the original statement that he wanted to submit?
No, Chair, not at this stage, because very limited details were given. We weren't actually given a copy of the statement in advance, therefore we're unable to respond.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Okay, so moving on. So issues arising from Scrutiny and Overview Committee. We are asked just to note the report that's come from Scrutiny and Overview. And speedily on to number 7, the Q3 performance report. And Councillor Judith Rippers is going to introduce this, and then I think Mr. Jeff Membry is also going to give us some detail about it as well. Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Rippers.
Okay, if I can recommend the Q4 a performance report to Cabinet. Just one thing I'd really like to highlight from this very extensive and detailed report is the contact centre and the work that's gone into that to really bring the answering times of phone calls up to scratch and to get them answered and dealt with much more quickly, with 80% being dealt on the first time. Exceptionally in March and April, or March, when it's very busy at the end of that financial year when council tax bills land. So obviously lots of residents may be calling on those matters, and so I really want to commend the work of Jeff Membry and his team for all the improvements being made, which I'm sure are ongoing to get even better.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Rippeth. And Mr. Membry, would you like to just add in any detail? There's many highlights in this report, and as I've said before, I think, bearing in mind we're still suffering the effects of COVID, I think it's extraordinary that such progress has been made. But I know there's been an awful lot of work put in over a considerable period of time.
Yes, thank you, Leader. As you say, I think this is a very positive report. It reflects well on the officers across the authority who, as you say, have been working incredibly hard. This is the last performance report for last year. There are going to be some amendments based upon recommendations from members and former members for next year's performance KPI report. And as you say, I think I'd like to add my thanks to those officers on the front line on the contact centre who have adapted to the new telephony system that we introduced last year exceptionally well, and have worked incredibly hard to bring both the waiting times down and to increase the number of first-time percentage calls resolved in just one contact. That, as the Cabinet member has said, is particularly challenging over the March and April period, where we always have incredibly high volumes of calls because we have council tax bills going out, there are rent increases, people need to report changes in their pensions and income to the benefit service. So I'd just like to add my thanks to the team who have worked incredibly hard in delivering improved performance on that.
Thank you very much indeed. Would any Cabinet members want to comment on their particular service areas? Councillor Batchelor.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'd like to draw attention to a couple of the housing issues. Tenant satisfaction with responsive repairs. I'd like to point out that we've improved significantly in March. We're now running at a 93% satisfaction rate. These key targets are being reviewed in context with the new contract, which will be coming in at the end of the year. So we hope to make that even more robust. I'd also like to draw attention to the average days to re-let our housing stock. This is a really key target, but we are reviewing the target, which currently is at 17 days, which is more than challenging, given that this is what we could describe as a key-to-key period, i.e. when the key is actually handed in, whatever work needs to be done on the property is done, then the letting process takes place, and then the keys are handed to the new tenant. To do that in 17 days is extremely demanding, so that is under review. Having said that, we're in the period, we've gone from 40 days in January to 26 in March, so there is significant improvement. And of course, this is a key area in keeping income coming in and satisfying demand of tenants. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Handley?
Thank you, Leader. Although it's not a part of the report, I wonder if you would allow me just to sing the praises of the communities team, because they have responded magnificently to the Ukraine refugee crisis. I'm getting nothing but praise from people, from guests, from other community organisations, and I'd just like to thank everyone, because they really have and still are working very, very hard and very effectively.
Thank you. We're well aware of that, and the workload just increases. It doesn't diminish, and we're incredibly grateful. I'm going to bring Councillor Milnes and then Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to pay tribute to our bin crews who continue to work immensely hard trying to keep up the performance that you see in the report, despite having a long-term so a chronic shortage of staff condition, that we're trying innovative ways to improve the situation. But in the meantime, our existing crews are working incredibly hard and being very flexible. So I'd like to just pay tribute to both the crews and their managers who are working in very trying conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to draw attention and comment on a couple of the areas in Appendix B in the big business plan progress report, and certainly thank the officers, all the team involved there. So obviously in terms of business support, we're moving from that period of support during COVID in deploying a lot of the government grants to now assisting startups and trying to, inverted commas, get back to normal in terms of the activity here. So we're still in touch through the business newsletter with about 1,500 businesses and more contact coming through them. One of the things that happened, not so much in Q4, but it rolled through to Q4, was the ongoing success of the Visit South Cambs site. So we've now had 3,500 unique visitors during the period since that was launched in September 2021. In terms of funding, then the team deployed the 1.48 million to 101 businesses in the Growth Fund, and that's helped some startups. That's been very much welcome. And we now have a database of more than 5,000 premises details, working in conjunction with the business rates team. So going forward, I think we're going to be able to provide even more substantial support to these businesses, because we are entering a period potentially of negative growth. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Leader. Good morning. I just want to say a big thank you to the planning officers who have been working exceptionally hard, especially during the during the lockdown period. As you can see from the stats, meeting the targets quite well, especially as you probably know, we also have had challenges with staffing levels. And yes, just to acknowledge that there's a lot going on there. And of course, as well, with complaints, which has gone down quite significantly. We're dealing with those very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Are there any other members? Councillor Ellington.
Thank you. I was impressed with the performance indicators at scrutiny. But I just wanted to ask how often we review what we're actually scrutinising or what we're actually using as indicators, because people do learn to make the indicators or achieve the indicators, but not necessarily achieve the spirit of what we're trying to achieve. And I just wondered how often that's reviewed. And also, of course, we change practice. which makes a big difference to the outcomes.
Thank you. So I think there's two elements to that. One is what we are, what actually the KPIs are, what it is, but also the thresholds we're working to. Because, I know in the past I felt that sometimes those thresholds are, lower than one would have expected. So it is something we keep under review. Should I come to Jeff to give us some detail of that?
Yeah, the indicators are reviewed regularly by the policy and performance team. In fact, funny enough, I've got a meeting tomorrow morning to do just that. What we try and do is give some consistency over the course of a year so that people can refer back when it comes to the KPI reports. But we have added extra commentary in, for example, if members raise questions. And we have had over the course of a year some suggestions made by members of scrutiny and some suggestions made by ex-members of the council who have come along, and we are incorporating those into the performance indicators for next year. So you'll see that the next set of performance indicators will be slightly different. So it is regularly, but formally they're reviewed once a year so that we've got that consistency across the year.
Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Any other questions from anybody else? No. So, also, as well as the actual KPIs, is the fact that out of our business plan actions, 42 of them are now complete. And I think that shows, real focus on delivery. The last time we looked at it, it was 21. So, we've doubled it. So, we need to be possibly looking at some more actions, giving ourselves some more work to do. I'd also... sorry, my apologies. Anna Bradnam. Yep. Hello.
Thank
sorry.
you, Leader.
Before I wind up.
Sorry, I was a bit late to put in my request for a question. I just wanted to raise that at Scrutiny and Overview, I raised concerns on the business plan progress report. And I cannot find the reference now, but we were doing work to recruit new staff, but I wanted reassurance that we are doing work to retain staff, and because we spend a lot of money on recruiting and training new staff, and it's much more cost effective to retain staff if we can. And so I'd asked for extra detail on what we're doing to retain staff, and I wondered if Mr. Membry could comment on that, perhaps.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we're doing a number of things to ensure that we retain staff. We've got a retention policy, so we regularly review what's going on in the market, what roles are particularly hard to fill, and keeping an eye on the horizon to see what's coming up. There are some areas where we know that we can't compete with the private sector, and that's normally around salary. But what we can compete with is helping people that work for us feel engaged with us as an authority, help them feel that they're trusted and valued, and help them feel that they share our values as an organisation. So we put in a great deal of time both in supporting the health and well-being of our staff, but also in developing the skills of our managers to enable them to provide that level of support for our colleagues ongoing. We also undertake exit interviews where people do leave the organisation, and we use the information there to find out the reason why people are leaving. So we do that for a number of reasons. One, so that we can spot any potential trends and head off any particular issues that might be developing, but also to find out if there's anything that we can do to if we identify a particular issue, to see if there's anything we can do to make sure that we move to address that issue. We have well-being sessions, that are drop-in sessions that are available to any of our colleagues on a regular basis with the HR team, where they can flag up any concerns that they've got. And of course, we as a leadership team try to make sure that we're always open and have an open door policy to all of our colleagues who come in and talk to us if they feel there's anything that's bothering them, and that we, so that we can act quickly to try and resolve those. So we've got a range of things that we're looking to do to make sure that we retain the staff that we need.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. Interference there. It was just in relation to the comments from Mr. Membry about when people leave the the surveys that they do. It is a problem that we've noticed in staff and employment about people not wanting to fill in those surveys. So I'm just wondering whether we do look at the percentage of people filling in those when you're looking at those issues, because obviously it's great to have feedback, but if the majority of people aren't doing it, then it makes the feedback a little bit less meaningful. Thank you, Leader.
So that's obviously a staff operational issue, so I will have to defer to Mr Membry on that.
You're right that not everybody does want to engage with us, although we often find that most, I'm afraid I don't have the statistics in front of me, Councillor Wings, I have to contact the HR team and get those for you. But from my observation, most people do engage with us.
Thank you. So if there are no more questions, I'd also just like to thank Kevin Ledger for there's been real progress in these reports over the last few years. You know, these are they're now really useful, dynamic, active documents, and I keep the latest version of it available all the time, so I constantly refer to it. Not just for the hard data, but also for the narrative that Kevin now puts alongside. So I find this incredibly useful, and when I go and do talks about what the council's doing, actually it's my starting point, it's my resource for information on where we are, you know, where we've come from, what we're doing, and where we're going. So I cannot underestimate the importance of this document, and I think all members need to be looking at it very regularly indeed. And again, it is transformed to what we've had in the past, and it's now incredibly useful. And Kevin's very, very receptive to suggestions about it. And so my thanks to you, and of course to Jeff's leadership on this as well. So moving on. So, hang on, let me just get to where we are. So, Councillor Rippeth has recommended this. I'm happy to second it. Cabinet's recommended to review the KPI results and comments at Appendix A and progress against business plan actions at Appendix B, recommending where appropriate any actions required to address issues identified. On over. Do members agree with the proposal? It's a bit slow. Anybody wish to wake up, chaps? Anyone wishing to vote against? Anyone wish to abstain? No, thank you. Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals by affirmation. So, moving on to item 8, which is the hybrid working policy, which I will be recommending. This has come out very much from the effects of the last 2.5 years, and the fact that we were catapulted into remote working by necessity. And I think that as an organisation, I think we coped incredibly well with that. And I think the leadership which Liz and her team gave us meant that we fared far, far better than very, very many councils. We were already in a good place. We'd already installed the physical kit in the offices to allow remote meetings, and we're already well advanced on the Council Anywhere programme. So, we did have some of those seeds, well established within the organisation, which I think made it easier. But there was massive challenges of motivating people, of ensuring people's health and well-being, practical things about making sure that people had chairs to sit on if they were working at home, which didn't actually damage their skeleton, of managing teams working remotely, which is really not easy, and of maintaining performance. And actually, mainly, we managed to increase performance in many areas. So, I think there's been massive learning out of this, and it's important that we don't just go back to our way of working pre-COVID, because I think we've identified many advantages from a different way of working, and certainly by working in a hybrid fashion. So Jeff has been doing a massive work on this to identify, with Liz, to identify what is going to work for each team, and it's very much about empowering each team, all of our service areas, to identify what is best for them. So I'm very excited by this. I think we are leading the way in our ambitions here, and I will ask Jeff to just talk in more detail about how we got here and how it's landing with our officers.
Thank you very much, Leader. As you say, this sort of came about through the compelled change to our working arrangements due to the COVID pandemic. That led to some expected, but also some unexpected results. One of the perhaps unexpected results is that for many teams and individuals, output actually increased rather than reduced. The quality of the work remained the same or improved in many cases. Despite the fact that we had a global pandemic, our sickness levels actually reduced as an organisation. And perhaps one thing that was expected was that the number of car journeys reduced as well. What we're looking to do with this hybrid working policy is to consolidate all of those benefits, the good things that came out of what we've learned to working in a different way, and make sure that we've got them in board for going forward. I think we've just talked about the KPI reports, and members will see the fact that despite the fact that many of our officers have been working from home on a regular basis, performance has remained strong and in many areas improved. What this hybrid working policy is looking to deliver actually are three main things. First of all, benefits to residents, because what we want are our people operating as efficiently and effectively as possible. So by giving them that flexibility to work in a way that means they're working most effectively, we're delivering more for residents than we were before. We're looking to deliver benefits to us as an employer. A lot of organisations are learning from the way that technology is changing and the way that people have been working differently over the pandemic and are offering more flexibility. And we can't afford to be left behind. We need to ensure that we're getting the people with the talents that we need to deliver for our residents. And this hybrid working policy is looking to deliver that benefit to us so that we can compete with other organisations. And of course, it delivers environmental benefits with the reductions in commuting and the reductions in car journeys that has resulting environmental benefits. So we're looking to ensure that we engage our team. As the leaders mentioned, the way we went about this was to have our teams get together and produce team charters, and those team charters looked at how they could best work to deliver on all of those advantages. And it's different for different teams. This isn't a case of saying everybody's going to be working from home all the time. There are some teams that will work best by coming into the office and being in the office most of the time. Other teams will come into the office at some times and work from home at others. And for people like me, I think it will depend upon the work that I'm doing on any one day. Sometimes I can do that more effectively from the office, and sometimes I'm better off working from home. So this isn't about saying everybody's going to work in one particular way. It's saying we have a range of roles. See, it's so good it says it twice. There you go. Sorry. We've got different teams. We've got different officers with a range of roles. And what this policy does is allow us to match that working arrangement to the role. I'm happy to take any questions that members might have. And if there's any really difficult questions, then Chloe, I think, has joined us to answer those for me.
Thank you. Councillor MacDonald, you're going to second this. Do you want to speak now or later?
I'd like to speak later, Leader.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from members of Cabinet? Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you. That's not a question really, but just to say, looking at the planning service, I guess it was a timing issue that we actually moved to a new software, a planning software, in February, and then we had the lockdown start in March. And had we not had that investment and that in place, probably things might have been different. Yes, there were challenges, but our officers actually worked with that. And we were able to obviously provide for them, the screens that they needed, not just on the laptop. And over the last couple of years, so even though there have been challenges, they have worked exceedingly well with what they've got. But now that, lockdown rules have changed, they can come in when they want to. They're meeting each other and talking as they need. In fact, I think every Thursday you probably find there's quite a number of them here, having their team meetings. So the advantage is there, and many of them don't have to commute as they used to because they can't afford to live here, they live further out. So that has helped them too. We're constantly reviewing how they're feeling and what's going on with them. So in some respects, I guess for me, I'll be happy to support this. Obviously, bearing in mind that it will be different for different sections of the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. And I think it's been really tough on the planning service doing this. I think that was, they probably, it was just physically difficult when they're used to dealing with great big plans and things. And I think they've coped incredibly well with it in very difficult circumstances. Councillor Batchelor.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I entirely support this hybrid policy. Just a small item of detail that I'd just like to bring to your attention. Some frontline staff, particularly in housing, the housing advice team, specifically talking about, do have to be in the building in order to meet with clients and so on. And perhaps more importantly, for supporting each other, because this is a very taxing sort of job with a lot of difficulties, and it is also a job where discussions have to go on about very confidential matters, and in that context, at the moment we have we don't have discrete areas within the building where that sort of team can actually meet and in confidence discuss matters and talk to clients on the phone. So I'd just like that to be taken into account, please.
Thank you. Mr. Member, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Exceptionally good points, and as part of the work that we're doing for the accommodation strategy, we will be ensuring that there are confidential areas available for teams that come into the office and need to have those confidential discussions.
Thank you. And we do have, quite a lot of day rooms as well. I mean, I met with the exceptional officers who deal with the sheltered housing on my patch in the day room, and again, that was a good place to meet, and we were able to talk about very local issues there. So it's a good use of the day rooms as well. Councillor Milnes.
Thank you, Leader. So I'd just like to offer my support for this hybrid working policy, and thank Jeff and the other officers who have been taking the chance to leverage the technology that we have. I think generally the progress that we've made has been substantial already, and I'm pleased to see that we are recognising that this hybrid working could lead to a deficit of opportunity for team building exercises, and indeed I think the potential problem that presents has been addressed already, but I would like to particularly look at this again when it comes to review to see how that's impacting the working environment and that relationship between colleagues. I'm also very pleased to see that Jeff and his team have ignored the Rees-Mogg quill and parchment option, and I look forward to the time when we can actually take part in voting from when we're not actually in the building. And then there's another issue that is arising out of this is the usage of our space in the offices. and whether or not in the long term we're going to have more space than we have need for, and that will obviously have to be reviewed too. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff, would you like to just pick up on how we're going to be reviewing the, how well this is working with our officers, but also how, once we're clear about how much space we're going to need in the future, how that's playing into the sort of building management work you've been doing?
Yes, certainly, Leader. We will be reviewing this on a regular basis, not just in relation to how officers are finding it, but actually, equally importantly, how residents are finding the results and how members are finding the results. So we'll be doing that. I mean, we want to give it about 6 months to settle in so that people get to see it fully in operation, but we'll be doing the first review in about 6 months. Certainly, the working assumption is that the hybrid working arrangements will result in an occupancy rate of South Cambs Hall at about 60 to 65% of pre-pandemic levels. So we do have the capacity to look at how we use our space more effectively. And we're doing that as part of a accommodation review. And we've got a number of challenges that we're looking to address in that review. First of all, how do we ensure that we've got the right layouts, the right equipment, the right furniture to encourage collaborative working across teams, because that's vitally important moving forward. How do we ensure that where we've got space that we can free up to rent out and generate additional income, that we're identifying that in a way that makes it attractive, but also doesn't detract from our ability to deliver our services? And how do we also provide space for startup businesses in South Cambs that can't afford to buy their own space, but when they're meeting with clients, want to be able to meet in a modern setting rather than just meeting them in a cafe. So those are three of actually a number of other challenges that we're addressing as part of our accommodation strategy. That's at a relatively early stage at the moment. I think members will have seen one example with the collaboration space on the first floor, where we had a variety of different types of furniture, for example, to see how they work so that we can then take the learnings from that in planning how we roll out going forward. And we're in the process of putting that strategy together, expecting to have something in place over the next probably 2 or 3 months' time. But again, it's a learning environment, and as we see how people react to the hybrid working policy, we'll be adapting. We'll be feeding that into the way that we're planning how we use our accommodation, and we'll be adapting in light of that. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, that's really helpful. Have you got any follow-up, Councillor Milnes, or you?
No, that's fine, thank you, and I look forward to seeing how we make progress over the next 6 months or so.
Absolutely. Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Leader. Well, yes, I'm very glad to see this policy in place, and I think it's very positive, and it's very encouraging that the members of staff have engaged with it so positively and enabled our council to continue working during those difficult times of lockdown. And all credit to the IT department for getting that sorted at an early, they were already in the process of doing that. One of the things I just wondered is that the policy, rightly and properly at the moment, just refers to employees, and there's currently no reference to members. But I just wondered if there's learning that we can gain from this policy that we might need to think about in terms of members as well, because you could argue that members have always worked remotely in some ways. And I just wondered whether there's any thought that we might create a policy for members just to ensure that their needs are covered. I mean, it may be that people think that's not necessary, but it was just a thought that occurred to me.
Thank you, Councillor Bradman. When I presented this to scrutiny last week, I did say that we needed to survey members to find out what members' experience was of the hybrid working of officers. But as you say, we've always worked remotely, haven't we? I think we've adapted well to the hybrid, today's point in question. We've adapted well to hybrid working. Obviously, we are restricted by the legislation over people having to be present in the room in order to vote. But I think the fact that, you are tuning in on this, thereby, saving your fuel costs, saving the environment and so on, but also still able to participate fully in this meeting shows that it does work. But we will be doing a survey of members to just check what their experience is of the organisation using this different method of working. Okay. Councillor Rippeth, and then I'll come to Councillor Williams.
Yeah, I would completely support this because it's hybrid. That's the key word, that it allows flexibility, which has been kind of in a way forced upon us because of lockdowns, but it's had the benefit, I think, of bringing the council into the 21st century and working in a more efficient way, which is more modern and caring, and it's greener, and it enables not only officers to really get on with the job that they've got to do, but also residents to access services, and us as local members to do the same. And we're also that link, aren't we, between the residents and the work that goes on as the council. So I think this is really, really important. And again, it's going to be reviewed after 12 months, so it's not like set in stone. It's something which is a developing process, which I'm sure Jeff Membry would agree with that too. I just think it's really important to highlight how this helps actually everybody.
Yes, well said. And we've already referenced difficulty in recruiting and retaining staff. If this goes some way to making us a more attractive employer, then actually that deals with some of the very significant issues we have. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. I'm pleased to hear that it's going to be reviewed and regularly. I think it should be even more regularly if you can to begin with, because it is new, so there's going to be a lot to learn from the process. One thing that is a concern, not just at the council, but across across all employees in the sector, is that it tends to be those already established in their careers that find the hybrid working arrangements easier and the work from home, whereas actually those starting off on their careers struggle because they're not having those, although it might reduce productivity for their own growth as in the workforce, they're having those, I don't know, what do they call them, sideline conversations with senior members of staff in the canteen or whatever it is, or there's more that informality that helps, particularly when people are starting. So with that in mind, and bearing in mind from the staff employment figures, we can see that one of the key reasons for people leaving is a lack of progression. They don't have the sort of progressive career opportunities that came through in one of our reports recently. I think we need to be mindful of that and ensure that that is taken into consideration in the reviews that we're doing, Leader, if that's possible.
Thank you, and I'll bring in either Liz or Jeff in a second. But obviously, one of the questions that informal cabinet, when we looked at this, were asking was about how do you manage people? How do managers do their job of managing? But then also, how are we really effective in making sure that new staff are well inducted, feel part of a team, get all that level of support, and that. So there are challenges there. But I'm going to defer to Jeff.
Thank you. The policy requires, for example, I agree that it is the newer members of staff, particularly those that are new to work, that have got the most challenges. The policy requires that we have a mentor assigned to all new members of staff to support them in when they're joining the organisation, but also to ensure that the managers take on board the fact that they've got a new member of staff and actually adapt the way they're working so that they meet that new member of staff on a regular basis. So that's part of the policy, and absolutely we will be reviewing specifically what the impact is on new members of staff of the hybrid working policy when we review it on a regular basis.
Thank you. Councillor Ellington.
Thank you. Ooh, that's not me. Yes, I think this is an excellent policy. And in my past life as a consultant, I did work from home quite a lot. But I pick up very much and agree with Councillor Bradnam. There is a slight difference here with having the addition of councillors apart from work colleagues. And I would just ask that staff should think about more often giving some progress reports. When we used to come into the office and the office was full of people, you could go and say, how are you getting on with Mrs. Blogs? And now you have to wait until an officer comes back to, or you're nagging at them. And you don't want to be seen to be doing that. So I just feel we need progress reports more often. Thank you.
That's a point well made. I was going to ask Liz to comment on it.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. It's a very well made point, Councillor Wellington, and I think one of our probably remaining challenges with our colleagues is making sure that not only are they delivering work, but they're also communicating how they're delivering it, which I think when you're in the thick of it and have a really heavy workload, which lots of our colleagues do, communicating what you're doing doesn't always kind of get to the top of your list, and it's something that the leadership team and I are working really hard on, because it's not hard to let people, members of the public or councillors, know what's happening. Even if there's no progress, I think it's better to say, I haven't progressed this week and this is what I'm planning next week, so that you know what's happening. So it's a really well-made point. Thank you, Councillor Wellington.
Thank you for raising that. Are there any more questions or comments? Councillor MacDonald.
Thanks, Leader. I think a lot of the points have been very well made by all members. For me, one of the critical things, and it is mentioned in the FAQ, is the consistency across teams. Because one team may make arrangements which are quite different from another team. So I think that's what we should be vigilant about in the next 6 months, and just have a very open discussion about that. What are the planning team doing? What are the communities team doing? What are the housing team doing? And what can they learn from each other? Because otherwise we could get a bit of a disconnect between the teams. But otherwise I think it's very good policy.
Thank you very much. So the recommendation is that Cabinet approve the introduction of the hybrid working policy. Do members agree with the proposal? Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone wish to abstain? So Cabinet therefore agrees the proposal by affirmation. Thank you very much. So coming on to item 9 now is the Community Safety Partnership, and Councillor Bill Handley is going to introduce the report.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Referring to page 33 of the main agenda pack, the Community Safety Partnership is a statutory partnership comprising the police, health, probation, fire and rescue, and we, South Cambridgeshire District Council, one of the responsible authorities, are part of that partnership. It does require a contribution of 15,000 per year, which is unchanged, hasn't changed for a year or two. It's our, if you like, it's our part of the budget. The annual action plan that's in the pack is the one for 22-23, and I would recommend that we accept this and the resource attached to it, which amounts to the sum of £15,000.
Okay, thank you very much. This comes under the communities team, does it? It does. Okay, fine. Right, thank you very much. I think, Councillor Batchelor, you're seconding it. Do you want to speak now?
Well, I haven't got a great deal to add, really, other than to say that I'm very happy to endorse the action plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Obviously, you know, working in partnership is absolutely critical on these issues, and you know, the stronger those partnerships are, the better. So I think it's right and proper that we are contributing to this and that we have very strong member involvement in it. Any questions from Cabinet members on the subject? No, I'll come straight to Councillor Williams in that case.
Thank you, Leader. I agree with us going, having that partnership and that dialogue and putting the funding towards it. When I was going through the report, though, I do feel we're spending money from the council. It needs to reflect and give rewards for all residents of South Cambridgeshire. And could we please have rural crimes and rural areas referenced at some point? We've got new legislation as well now in relation to a lot of this. It'd be good to see how that's being used. But it was something I completely understand, and I'm not trying to take away from the things that are noted in the report of antisocial behaviour and everything else. They are, of course, important issues. But drug-related issues are very much in our small villages at the moment, and there are big problems. And you'll look at my patch, considering its population, has quite high statistics on antisocial behaviour issues. So please can we make sure that rural communities are really represented in this, because we are asking farms to diversify. We have policies in our local plan to encourage it, but if they are suffering from break-ins and other elements of rural crime, then we're asking them to take a lot of risk and not really supporting them. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. So if I can just sort of clarify, so obviously, what might have been considered, crimes of urban areas, such as county lines, drugs running, absolutely affects rural areas. So I think we acknowledge that, the majority of crimes that affect urban areas, probably all of the crimes that affect urban areas, also affect rural areas. But there are some additional crimes that are specific to rural areas, particularly sort of farm crime, fly tipping and so on. So do you think there's not sufficient reference to the type of crime that is specific to rural areas in this?
Yes, Leader. I struggle to find reference to, for example, hare coursing, which has new legislation.
Oh, right. Okay, that's useful. Do you want to comment, Councillor Handley?
Point well made, Councillor Williams. I know that Catherine Hawkes is on the line. She'll no doubt make a note of that, and we do have a representative, Councillor Sally-Ann Hart. I'll make sure that she is aware of your comments as well.
Thank you. And it might actually be an idea if Councillor Hart has a chat to you. Actually, it might be a good idea, just so nothing gets lost in translation. Does Catherine Hawkes want to comment on this? Just on our determination to make sure that rural crime is does feature as highly as urban crime or generic crime.
Thank you, Lydia. Yes, we do have Rural Community Action Team updates at the CSP board, which meets every 6 months, and we have a regular monthly meeting for the tasking and tactical coordination group, and we bring our CAT reports to that meeting as well. So if it's helpful, I can share those, and hare coursing does feature on that.
Okay, I'm going to ask Councillor Handley, can you give some thought to how we report back to members so that members are confident that crimes that specifically are affecting us are being given the priority that they need to? If you could just sort of take that away and think how we report that back.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I used to sit on the Community Safety Partnership for South Cambs District Council, and at that time I raised the concerns about the costs of domestic homicide reviews. These fall on us in an unpredictable way, because obviously whenever there is a domestic homicide that has to be investigated, we are obliged to pay, and I'll draw your attention to page 4 out of 8. We've got 4,000 per annum that we're contributing to this, but I think actually it might be, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think Catherine Hawkes might be able to clarify whether that's per annum or what the rate is per review, because these are very costly to run and must be run in a particular way. So I just wanted to clarify that I currently sit on the police and crime panel for the county council, and I continue to seek lobbying through the Police and Crime Commissioner that there should be central funding for domestic homicide reviews, because we have no control over how many of these will be required to conduct each year, and they're very, very costly. So I just wanted to reassure you that I am seeking central funding for these. Whether there's any success with that, I don't know, but I do raise it every time.
Thank you, Councillor Bradnam. I'm sure Catherine Hawkes will take that away, and we'll be grateful to hear that you are lobbying for centralised funding for these tragic investigations. Thank you very much indeed. Perhaps if you would keep Catherine informed of what you're doing, Councillor Bradnam, I think that would probably be quite helpful if she knows what you're doing with your other councillor hat on. Okay. Are there any more questions? Okay, and Councillor Batchelor, you don't add anything here, so okay. So the recommendation is that Cabinet agree the content of the action plan for 2022-23, considering the lead role of the Council takes in its delivery and the resources committed to it. Do members agree with the proposal? Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals by affirmation. And item 10 now is housing repairs, the awarding of a contract. Members, please note Appendix A of this item is restricted as it's commercially sensitive, and it's not anticipated that discussion will need to take place on this appendix. However, if requested, a move to a confidential session will be required. So if any member wants to discuss the content of the appendix, could you please indicate that now? Okay, right, so we will continue in public session, but if the need arises to refer to that, can you please indicate it, because we will then need to go through the procedure to put us into confidential session. So, Councillor John Batchelor, you are going to introduce the report, I believe, and move the recommendation, and I think Councillor Hawkins is seconding it.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Leader. So this is the award of contract for repairs and maintenance for our housing stock. This has been a long and painstaking process over many months with a team of 12 people scoring the various tenders. These scorers have been made up of representatives of our tenants, members and specialist officers. Sorry, excuse me. So this is a legal process and all applicants must be treated the same. I say that because, as you would note, that the award of contract has been recommended to Mears, who are our current contractor. So it must be made very clear that that is the process that we went through. Every tender was treated in the same way and only judged on the tender documents. So nothing that has gone before was taken into account. So the past history was not relevant to this process. This is a new and different contract with different management requirements and different responsibilities. I was pleased to see that scrutiny commented that this had been a thorough and fair process. I would endorse that, and that's as much as I wanted to say in terms of introduction, but I know Peter Campbell and other members of his team are with us today if you would like them to expand on that. So, Peter, over to you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hawkins, do you want to comment at this point?
Thank you, Leader. I will second, but withhold my comment till the end.
That's fine. Right. Are there any questions from Cabinet members? Peter, is there anything you want to add in just before we come to any wider questions? I mean, I know this has been a very, very robust procedure and it's taken considerable effort on yours and your team's part, for which we're very grateful.
I'd come fully prepared to give an introduction, and then John's just stolen my thunder. So there's nothing much to add at the moment. Thank you.
Jolly good. That's what a good cabinet member does. Steals your thunder. Are there any questions from anybody else on the awarding of the housing repairs contract to Mears after a rigorous selection process? No? Nobody online? No? Okay. Jolly good. Shows what a thorough job you've done, Peter. Tumi, did you want to just say something before we go to a vote?
Yes, thank you. I mean, having been here when we had an internal repair service and then went out externally, I have seen, quite a few changes over the years. With this one, yes, though we have Mears as the current provider, this new contract actually is, I guess in my view, a better one. And I'm hoping that with the new way in which it will be implemented, that we will see some encouraging comments from the customers. And I'm quite keen, personally, to see that our tenants have the best service possible. So I will be supporting this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I think the problem for us as local members is that we only ever hear about the things that go wrong. We don't hear of the hundreds and hundreds of repairs and upgrading of properties that go really smoothly. And actually one of the nice things about canvassing the elections is a number of people on the doorstep who told me how delighted they were with their new windows and their new roof and their new kitchen and the new flooring and so on. So that was an opportunity to hear all the positives from the current contract. So we expect even more from this new one. So the recommendation is to approve the award of the contract to Mears Limited, who are the highest scoring bidder, who has also the lowest cost, providing a submission that is within budget and provides the council with value for money. Do members agree with the proposal? Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? Yep. So Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals by affirmation. So that's marvellous. I think that brings us to the end. Members of the public who are watching the webcast, this means the video stream will now end. Thank you for joining us to view today's Cabinet meeting. And I note the next meeting of Cabinet is scheduled to take place on Monday, the 11th of July at 10 o'clock. And thank you very much to all members who've participated remotely or in person, and to all officers for doing likewise. Oh, I forgot something. Yeah, sorry, guys. The escape. There are some minutes. So, but I've got to close. So we're going to close the meeting now and end the live stream.
Well, before you do that, you need to take the resolution to exclude the press and public.
Oh, crumbs. Okay. All right, sorry everyone. Okay, so we need to move into confidential session in order to approve some exempt minutes. So, because okay, right, my apologies for skipping that. So we now come to the point on our agenda where we need to consider whether to exclude the press and public from the meeting. This is because the next item contains information which is commercially sensitive. Members of the public are advised that if Cabinet agrees to exclude the press and public, the video stream will end. I therefore propose that the press and public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following item of business in accordance with section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972 on the grounds that, if present, there would be a disclosure to them of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act, brackets as amended. Is that seconded, Councillor Rippeth? Thank you. Do members agree with the proposal? Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? My apologies for that. Okay, so we're all right now to... And I'll read that out. Okay. Members of the public who are watching the webcast, this means the video stream will now end. Thank you for joining us to view today's Cabinet meeting. I note the next meeting of Cabinet is scheduled to take place on Monday, 11th of July, 2022 at 10 o'clock. And my apologies for preempting that.